Danvers, and welcome to our February 2022 Human Rights and Inclusion Committee meeting. I'm Jitoshe Joko. I go by D, Chair of the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee. We will start by having our member Bob Gamer read the Native Land Acknowledgement.
We acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the unceded territory of the Namkig people. Historical evidence shows that the Namkig were peaceful in their relationship with European settlers. However, their population depleted rapidly due to the Europeans' introduction of smallpox. As we begin our meeting, we acknowledge and honor the Namkig community, who were the original inhabitants of what is now known as Danvers, Massachusetts. Let us take a moment to honor these ancestral grounds that we are collectively gathered up and support the resilience and strength that Indigenous people have shown worldwide.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the next, the approval of the minutes of January. They were not sent out, so we will table that and do that next meeting. We'll now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is citizen queries. Anybody in the audience have any questions, comments? Yeah, none? Perfect. And yes.
Maybe out of order, correct me if I am, but I was wondering if I can make just a brief statement about Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who passed away, I think, I'm not sure the date, but in late January, early February. And I just wanted to read a quote before we get going, because I think the quote is appropriate for anything this committee does. It'll take 5 seconds if you let me.
No objection.
Okay, and this is a quote from one of his famous quotes, and I thought it was worthy of mentioning it tonight. The quote reads as this: "If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor." And I think it's very appropriate. I know we always have Martin Luther King quotes, but again, in this month, in February, I think it's also appropriate, as he was one of the leaders worldwide to eliminate apartheid in South Africa, so, right?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
He's certainly a good model for our committee, because he was the one responsible for the Truth and Reconciliation Committee who chaired that in South Africa and prevented much bloodshed in that would have happened had he not stepped up to do that job.
Thank you very much. I'll now move on to the next item, which is our student liaison updates.
Lil is coming shortly to also share an update from PRISM.
Okay.
In an event that they're going to be having coming up. So we
So
told
should
them we
we
would wait a little bit.
So should we come back to that?
Yeah.
Okay,
If that's okay with you, Melina. Does that work? Okay.
that's fine. I'm doing a very good job here with that agenda. I will now move on to the next item, which is the annual conflict of interest training.
So once a year we have to, I just want to make sure DCAT can hear me. Once a year we have to either acknowledge or redo a training, depending on the year we're in, with conflict of interest. And so for the purposes of this committee, our committee members are considered town employees, and you have to abide by the conflict of interest law. And so there was an email that went out, but it sounds like not everybody got it. So I will resend that. I think it originally came from Jen and just didn't make its way to everybody. So I will resend that. And I think this is a training year, if I'm not mistaken. Deb, do you know?
I honestly can't remember. Actually, I think
2020 was a training year, so We are in a training year now.
It might be. I think everyone who was new had to do the training anyway
Yeah.
last year, but yeah, I think it is a training year.
Yeah, so Danvers has everyone on the same schedule, so we had everybody do it 1 year so that we could then get everyone on the same schedule. So it's a short training. It takes about 30 minutes. You have to watch a little video and answer some questions at the end, promising not to take bribes and things like that. So, yeah, I'll resend that. I'll send that around to everybody. But if we could get that done by the, well, I suppose by the end of the month is ambitious now, but no, not really. By the next meeting, let's say. I know it's due in April, so yeah, I'll send that out, and just it'll take about half an hour.
Thank you very much. So we'll have a tentative deadline of by the next
By
meeting.
the next meeting, yeah, yeah.
Thank you. I will now move on to the next item, which is the April newsletter.
Yep, so April newsletter is underway, believe it or not. It's February, so we got to get moving on that. We have a couple articles already in there. Let me actually pull it up for you, and I'll just kind of give a quick update of what's already in there. And we're still taking articles, of course. The newsletter will feature some news about what the committee's done. It'll have, by the time we get to April, it'll have a summary of the Black History Month program that took place yesterday. It will have the Women's History Month speaker series. It will have, what am I missing? We've had another program since then, haven't we? I don't know, maybe not.
MLK.
MLK, thank you. It will have MLK in there. I'm like, I need to know how far back I'm going here. So that'll be in there. We'll have Liaison Reports. So we'll ask Eric, Pastor Douglas, Lieutenant Sullivan, and David to all write a little summary to put in there. That'll be a newer feature. We'll have one from our high school group. And then we have an article in here about the Holocaust Symposium going on at the high school. Someone sent me a fantastic article about, the headline is "Family Trees Fill in the Gaps for Black People Seeking Their Ancestral Roots." And it really talks about how, especially, you know, in America, being able to use, like, you know, genealogy to trace, using Ancestry to trace your genealogy is a privilege, because there's no documentation for so many people. So it's an excellent article that I decided to put in there because it's just so good. Just a lot of really good articles from around the world. We try not to put in anything too controversial. It's mostly, you know, victories for human rights in there. So if you have anything that you'd like to submit, please let me know. I'm asking everybody to submit, I think I said by February 28th, no, March 14th. Because that gives me a full 2 weeks to, like, make sure it all gets together and gets to Kristen for editing. So that's where we are with that.
Thank you very much. Any questions, comments? Yes.
Eileen, could we include the Desmond Tutu quote?
Yes, love that. Can you just email it to me and I'll put it in?
I'll do the best I can. I certainly will get it to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll send you some information on Desmond Tutu.
Please do. Yeah, we could even do like a little feature, do his obituary, you know, anything, little feature on his life. That'd be great. And then the other thing that we need as well is we always recommend a book. So in our December issue, we recommended Left to Tell, which is the story of Immaculée Ilibagiza, who survived the Rwandan Holocaust, and we did that in recognition of the anniversary of the Holocaust. I'm sorry, the Rwandan Holocaust. So if you have book recommendations that might be appropriate for April or springtime, please send them to me, and we'll include them in there. That means you, Bob. I know you read all day long.
Any
Message received.
any other questions, comments? No? Okay. Thank you very much. And I think our students are here,
Yes.
so we'll circle back and just get an update from our student liaison.
If you could use the microphone just so DCAT picks you up, yeah.
Hi. So I'm sure you guys know me by now. My name is Melena. I'm a senior at Danvers High School. I don't have an incredible huge amount of updates. I think one big one that we were still working on is bringing in, on multiple fronts, including in the Diversity Club, but also through other clubs, is bringing in speakers to speak with students, more things that we can do during our community block times, especially utilizing that 25-minute community block to bring in more, whether it's student engagement to the programs in the high school and student education and knowledge to current events and issues. So that is underway. Thank you.
And then I'm going to add one thing. So Melena's also going to be working with us to get some moderators for our Women's History Month speaker series, which we're going to be kicking off. So I'm holding you to that by saying it publicly.
Question, is
Yes.
going to hear these speakers voluntary on the part of students, or does the whole student body get to hear these speakers?
The way that I think at least what we were discussing before was doing it during community blocks, so it would be in sections. I don't know if this answers your question, but it would have to be by, grade level. But, I mean,
So
I
like,
think that's, I
like
don't-
freshmen go at one time to
it
hear the
would
speaker
be
and then the
freshmen go. I think that's something that would need to be discussed depending on who we can get, because there also is a bit of a roadblock between COVID, and a lot of the speakers that are available are volunteers, and a lot of the communities and outreach programs that we would be reaching out to are all volunteer based, and there is a shortage of the volunteers that would be able to come out and help us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But it's my understanding every student has a community block, right?
Yes.
So if we had someone who was available, they will be able to reach every student because everyone has a community block at some point during the day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Hi, my name's Lynn Montevecchi. I'm a junior at Danvers High School, and I'm the president of our group. It's called PRISM. It's essentially our GSA at Danvers High School. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about an event that we're planning on March 31st. It's for Trans Day of Visibility, and we are planning
Leo,
this event.
do you mind just?
Oh, is it?
pushing
I'm
the-
sorry. Is
you
it?
can pull it toward you a little more so people can hear it.
Is that better?
Thank you.
Okay. So on March 31st, we're planning an event for Trans Day of Visibility, which is just a day to honor all of the lives lost in 2021 due to hate crimes. So I think that we're going to be hosting part of the event in this room or in Town Hall, and then we're going to be walking to the library. And the event is just going to be a lot of readings by trans youth, and yeah, basically just honoring trans people.
Okay, you said March 31st, is that correct?
Yes,
So that's a Thursday.
yes.
Is it like after school?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be at 6 o'clock. We haven't worked out all the details yet. Some of the stuff is still up in the air, but it's probably going to be around 6 o'clock.
Is this only open to students, or can
No,
anyone
we
join?
hope to make it open to the public, to anyone who wants to come.
So the idea is to walk from the high school to the library? Is that-
From Town Hall to
or
the
from town hall here to the library?
Yeah, that'd be a long walk.
And Lil, I've been communicating with Ms. Carnevale too, so
Yeah.
if there's anything that the group needs from us, like,
Okay.
or if you want to just, like, want us to promote it or whatever, just have her send me an email and we'll get the word out, and, any way we can help too. Just let us know.
Great, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Once again, thank you for taking time out of your day to be here. This really means a lot to us, hearing from you, from your perspective. And just know that, we're here to support you in anything that you do. I will now move on. You're free to stay, but if you guys have to go do homework, that's okay as well. The next item on the agenda will be to discuss the draft resolution declaring racism as a public health crisis. Deb?
Hi, I apologize, we don't have copies of this. I was tied up in one meeting for over 7 hours today and stopped home for 5 minutes and came right here. So I can read the draft resolution, but I would also like to just express that there was some discussion at the subcommittee meeting about also adding to the resolution. So the subcommittee was charged with drafting a resolution declaring racism a public health crisis, and there was some discussion about adding to that resolution also anti-Semitism and LGBTQIA+ hate, and we wanted to discuss with the full committee to see what the right way would be to go about that. We do have some differing opinions within the subcommittee on whether it all belongs in one resolution or whether it should be addressed separately. I will read the resolution as it stands so that people can at least hear it, and then Dee, I'll turn it over to you. So the draft resolution currently reads, whereas the American Public Health Association has stated that racism attacks people's physical and mental health, and racism is an ongoing public health crisis that needs our attention now, and whereas racism is a threat to public health and safety and causes disproportionately high rates of incarceration of people of color, and whereas racism has a negative impact on safe and equitable access to opportunities for health, including but not limited to education, housing, food security, healthcare access, and employment, and whereas all areas of town government and systems must commit fully to addressing the impact that racism has on the overall health of our town, and whereas racial justice is the creation and proactive enforcement of policies, practices, attitudes, and actions that produce treatment, outcomes, and access for all people regardless of race. And whereas the town of Danvers is committed to creating and instituting changes in our policies and practices across our municipal departments and within our school system to address institutional racism and the impacts of racism on the social detriments of health. And now therefore be it resolved that the Danvers Select Board, the Danvers Board of Health, and the Danvers Human Rights and Inclusion Committee declare that racism is a public health crisis in the town of Danvers. And be it further resolved that the town and its departments will work to address the crisis through policy creation and system changes that work to dismantle the systemic racism that creates barriers to strong public health and safety.
Wow.
Thank you. So let me see first of all if people have comments, questions. Yes, Bob.
In Foxwood, this happened, I believe, yesterday. A trans student was assaulted by 2 other students. There is a thin line separating hate statements and violence. Just look at January 6th, the legitimate political discourse. Officers were killed. Our vice president was nearly hung. All going back to these hate statements. What we have going on here in Danvers is a trifecta of hate, involving hate statements against blacks, against Jews, and against the gay. I am a white, straight, Unitarian Universalist. I am not a member of any of the targeted groups. But I want to say this. It is the same as attacking me. I will not vote for this unless we append anti-Semitism and homophobia to this statement.
Thank you. Bill?
Yeah, I don't know what we want to do, but I think either we do 3 different statements, one addressing each of these areas, or we put in some kind of parenthetical expression that says racism includes these other groups. I'm comfortable with either way of going, but we need to do something that addresses the groups Bob just mentioned.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah.
You know, and say the option of separate statements and all of the nuances you would have to add. This committee meets once a month. We're going to wait forever to make some kind of declaration? I mean, we have people who are in fear. We have to speak to these people and speak to them now.
Yes, Deb?
A couple of things. First, I want to make sure that we're using appropriate vocabulary when we speak about people. It is the LGBTQIA+ community, not the gays, first of all. So I want to make sure that we're using the appropriate language. Second of all, I want to be clear that I do believe that we should be speaking out against hate and injustice. I do it every day of my life, and I also walk my talk. And I want to make sure that we're not doing things that are performative. Declarations and resolutions are all well and good, but we need to have actions behind them. My concern is in addressing everything in one document that we're getting into all lives matter territory. And each of the groups that have been mentioned experience hate, and I cannot imagine the hate that people of color endure, people that are part of the LGBTQIA+ community endure, and people who are Jewish endure. The types of hate that all of those groups endure, there's some intersectionality, but there are also big differences. And when I sat down and I drafted this resolution, I was thinking specifically about people of color and the threats to health access, the rates of incarceration, and access to food, health care, housing. And all of those don't intersect with some of the other things that are being brought up. And I think to address it wholesale is dangerous because we're not lifting up each group in an appropriate way to address the hate that each group endures. And by doing that, I don't think we're living up to our charge as a Human Rights and Inclusion Committee. And I think we also need to think about more than just speaking out. I think we need to think about how we can do things to actually help people and make sure that we're not making performative statements.
Any other questions, comments? Well, I believe the direction that I did give the subcommittee, I think I may not have been clear as to what the subcommittee was charged to do. The intent that I had was to have the subcommittee not necessarily come up with a resolution, but come up with what is this resolution going to do? What is the action steps if we were to take this action? And I think maybe I may not have been very clear about that because, and I've been struggling with this. I kind of just look at the Wikipedia and find out what is a public health crisis. And it's defined as it is a difficult situation or complex health system that affects humans in one or more geographic areas, and then it goes on and on. I was looking at other communities or institutions who have made racism a public health crisis. I came up with one from Purdue University, where they state clearly that racism is a public health crisis. However, within that statement, there were a lot of action steps that they were taking to really, change the tide as far as that's concerned. So my concern with just having a resolution at this time will be, I think the word performative is appropriate because I won't be seeing exactly where does that lead us into advancing our mission.
Well, I think the whole purpose behind it is to make a strong statement. And let me add that if you want to go to the subcommittee, I polled the subcommittee and the votes were 3 to 1 to include anti-Semitism. And I'll use the right vocabulary. I apologize. The LGBTQ1A.
And I really commend the subcommittee and the work that they did. I mean, it takes time, commitment. What I'm saying is I'm not even there yet. I'm not even at a place where I'm deciding what to include. I'm still at an early stage as to, I don't know if this resolution is what we need. Because when we're talking about something that's, and I also said before, and I'll say it again, we have no authority to declare resolution in the town of Danvers.
Correct.
So whatever we do, we are an advisory board to the select board. So we will draft something and bring it to them for their consideration. We can do the same to the Board of Health. You know, we can do something. But my concern is, as much as racism is something that has to do with, you know, inclusion and human rights, if we want to call it a health crisis, I don't know if that should be handled by the Board of Health. I'm not sure if we really have the ability to be able to make that declaration and follow up with the action steps that are needed. That's my concern.
Well, I would think, or rather, let me change that. I know that when someone sees a swastika, when someone sees hate graffiti against the LGBTQIA, when someone sees racist messages, there is certainly a mental health consequence. And when there is a mental health consequence, that also includes a physical response. You know, just 2 days ago, I think Columbus, Ohio, passed guns control as a public health hazard. You know, we have got to get on top of this. I mean, there was just a recent episode at I don't know, the middle school, at Danvers High School, with this trifecta of hate again. I mean, what are we going to do? Sit here with our hands tied? We've got to come down. We've got to make a strong public statement.
And I totally agree with that. We have to come down hard on this, but with some very specific action steps into changing the tide. And let me put my Board of Health hat on a little bit. We are in the middle of a pandemic that have killed almost 1 million people in the country. That is a public health crisis. And I'm not minimizing in any way, shape, or form racism. This is something that we've been struggling with as a nation for over 300 years. And it's not sudden, so that's why sometimes when we talk about these graffitis or these statements or these things, we need to stop being surprised about it. We need to stop. It's not new, at least in my lifetime. What I've experienced personally, none of this is new. So to go from these statements and these graffitis and just declare that we are in the middle of a public health crisis will even give the perception that we were not paying attention all along, because these things have been happening. They were not in the Boston Globe, they were not in the news, but they were happening. So when I go from a COVID-19 that is killing millions of people to graffitis in the world, and again, I'm not minimizing them, they're serious and they have to be dealt with, but I think that we need to get in the trenches and do some actual work to change the tide, instead of just having a resolution without a follow-up. So my suggestion would be that as a committee, we continue to be committed to what we're doing. And I was going to announce it, I was going to talk about it maybe under public business. It might be appropriate now. The DEI position hopefully will be filled soon. Interviews have started this week. I participated in at least one of them and was blown away by this candidate. And I think that this is something that will need so much follow-up, that having someone like a DEI who is there full-time to help us navigate these areas will really help us. Because if we just put a statement out and nothing to show for and nothing to follow up, then we lose credibility, because it becomes performative instead of really taking actions. So that would be my suggestion to the committee we are not gonna sit by and let these instances go unchallenged. However, we have to be very strategic and intentional as to the way we tackle them. And I think having this position filled, hopefully before our next meeting, I'll come here and say an offer has gone out, and it'll be up to the candidates to say yes or no. And this person full-time with follow-ups, organizing things will really help us navigate this. That would be my suggestion to the committee.
Well, I guess, obviously, if I appear confused, I am. All right. And I understand where Bob's coming from, and I understand where the chairman's coming from. I also understand that if we present this to the select board, they may say, go back and go to work on it some more. That's obvious. They may not buy it first time through. They may want to help us reword it. I'm not so sure we can get a resolution that everyone agrees on. Pretty tough. I thought that from the beginning. I really appreciate what Deb's done, and there isn't a thing in there that I don't agree with, quite frankly. Everything you said, I'm ready to vote for it. But I'm a little concerned that I think as a committee, we would like to get unanimous support. And I can certainly respect Bob carrying it over to the next group of folks that are heavily discriminated against and there's bigotry toward. And we would like to cover that too, because I think that, as Bob said, I think you agree, Mr. Chairman, too, that there is the mental problem that is a health hazard too. That they can't be minimized in any way. And yet I don't want to keep putting this thing off too easily. I don't, but I think we should try to get unanimous approval of at least what we present to the select board. And then it's up to them to decide whether they want to accept it or not. And if it means we have to wait another 15, 20, 30 days or even less, I know the select board meets twice a month. So it doesn't necessarily have to be for us to wait till the next meeting. I think as a committee, as a board, we've passed things just through email, making suggestions, coming up with an agreement, and who knows, 10, 15, 7 days, we could have something.
I mean,
I want this to move forward, I guess, and so do you.
I do, and just as a procedure, we cannot discuss this via email.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's.
Deb and I are over here like.
So, if this has to be discussed,
Yeah. Well, we could have an emergency meeting.
If that warrants one.
If we felt that we had a pretty good airtight statement that could you do it by sending out the separate email to each person? Can't
No,
do that.
so,
You still can't discuss
Yeah.
this.
Well, not discuss, but make changes and send in.
No.
Still, that's like, if we have the quorum, we can't do that via email.
Yeah,
It
okay.
has to be.
But there is a way to get this done by having an emergency meeting
Definitely.
with a
yes.
quorum.
Yes.
But I would like to see, would you have 4 on the committee, Deb? The subcommittee?
Yes.
And you're at 3 to 1 now, right? But I'd like to see, if my
Actually,
person,
There was somebody else, but she didn't attend the meeting. so there are
She
actually
said
5,
she would not be able to be part of it.
And there are 4.
so there's 4. But at least if you can come back with 4 in agreement, and that gives us a better platform to get a total consensus from the 11-member committee before we present it to the board.
I totally agree that the consensus will be something that I would like to have.
Deb has a question.
I just want to be totally forthright because I don't want to be disingenuous about anything. I'm not going to ever be the person who agrees to dealing with issues wholesale that need to be dealt with specifically because there are intricacies that are important to acknowledge and that it's important to lift up different groups of people that are traditionally marginalized and disenfranchised. I will not, I'm going to be the one dissenting voice every single time because it's not appropriate to deal with wholesale. I am not going to be the all lives matter person. I'm not going to be. And if I'm going to be the kink in the works, I'm happy to resign.
Oh, we don't want that.
And again, I think I'm not even there yet. So I think we're discussing about what we want to include in a resolution that I don't know if we need a resolution. So I'm still struggling with that. I don't know if this is needed, but I do know that we have a lot of work to do.
Well, if we're going to go forward, then we've got to get Deb on our side, too.
So
I mean, seriously.
Again, I'll come back to what I said earlier. I believe that we need to look at this document, this resolution, in terms of after this statement, then what? Mm-hmm. And once we have that layout, once we have a roadmap as to what the action steps are, I think we will have an easy consensus.
Mm-hmm. Well, I hope you're right.
And if that means including everything or 3 different ones, I'm not even there yet. I think that we need to have a roadmap as to what this document is achieving, what's its objectives, and what are the action steps that we're going to take. And I firmly believe that having a DEI will really serve us well, because, you know, this is something that we want to affect town hall, we want to affect the schools, we want to affect every sector of our government as well as our town. And it can't be just something that we take lightly. So my suggestion will be to table it, and then we'll consider it. And if the subcommittee wants to continue to work on at least what is next, that is something that I'll entertain.
Well, Deb, without identifying them, I'm not rewording it the right way, but without identifying the problems that exist. You mentioned yourself what you might be opposed to or not. Is there room for the subcommittee to look at this again and come up with the kind of wording and compromise that we could eventually move forward to once we get the new director in? Because, I mean, that's basically, that's one of the, obviously you folks have worked hard on this, but apparently there isn't a consensus. Is that a fair statement?
And I think, Paul, I think you're still referring to the resolution.
Yeah, I am, yeah.
Yeah. I'm saying we need to find out, first of all.
I haven't even had a chance to read it now. This is the first time I've had to listen to it.
That's right, but
so there might be stuff in there that if I look at it a second time, say, whoa, what's this?
I think I agree with everything that was read. I just don't see any action step after that.
Well, what is the next action step? That's what I'm trying.
Exactly.
That's my point
what we
with
need
that.
to figure out.
Can I just make just a point of information, Deb? Mm-hmm. So what you're saying, and by the way, I really thank you for finding this resolution. What you're suggesting is that we issue this resolution as written, and then at later points issue another declaration with nuances for, you know, like you said, you don't want to do things wholesale. A separate one for anti-Semitism, and then a third declaration for the LGBTQIA, with the nuances that are appropriate to them. That is what you're suggesting.
No, that is actually not what I said.
Okay, then
I actually don't think any resolutions should be made without policies and action steps to be submitted along with them, because that's actually, I do this outside of here in other facets as well. And so when I present a resolution, I actually also present them with policies to go along with them for passage. Because I don't believe in resolutions without policies to present action steps to go along with it, which is what D is saying. But I do believe that if any resolutions are put forward, that there should be separate resolutions for each. I'm not suggesting that 1 month we do one, another month we do another, and another month we do another. That is not what I'm saying, nor have I ever said that. Thank you.
So you want to say something?
No, I'm just trying to figure out how we should proceed as you are.
The way we should proceed is, we will table this, and once we get a DEI on board, we will really work on some action steps and policy changes. We consider this and come up with a resolution with some clear action steps that we can follow as a committee and as a town.
And I agree with the tabling, so we're gonna table it until we get the new DEI.
That's correct, which hopefully.
But we will not ask the subcommittee to come back with another resolution. Is that correct? Is that what you're hearing?
That is correct.
Fine?
That is correct. I think that will help us get the consensus that we want to have, because I think that is really necessary. Well, we don't have to have it all the time, but I think this is something that is so dear to every one of us.
Well, if we don't have consensus on this committee, I think it's gonna be tough to sell it on the slip.
I totally agree.
I think we have to work on that.
Yes, Dr. Chari.
Yeah, first of all, I think that the intent of the resolution is profoundly important and very critical with regards to the issue that we're trying to deal with here in Danvers, which then has implications for the way we think about what's happening in the rest of the country, which resonates with the whole need to have a resolution in the first place. The country is going through very deep convulsions right now around issues related to every topic that we've talked about tonight, every single one of them. I think that with regards to the resolution that we're debating and agonizing over, it's because there's so much suffering that's being spread across so many different people. We're having difficulty trying to single out one group when other people are suffering equally as bad under circumstances that none of us can tolerate and all of us want to see addressed. So a resolution that doesn't encompass all of that, somehow or another, doesn't live up to the depth of the concern that we're all trying to share here tonight. So I would think that there is some wisdom in stepping back a little bit and saying, we're going to have somebody on board who can devote 100% of their time to working with us, working with other citizens in the community, listening to what people are saying and are concerned about, not alienating people by trying to do the right thing. We end up alienating people and marginalizing the very people that we're all concerned about. So sometimes there's wisdom in being a little bit cautious about moving too quickly about things we're concerned about. So I concur with the position of the chair, and I hope with the sentiments of the resolution writer that we're pausing because we're concerned about this. We're not pausing because we're trying to dodge something, walk away from something, or not be concerned about something. We're pausing because we want to be correct about what it is that we do and that we send the right message to the citizens of this town that we understand the depth of the problem that we're dealing with. And we want a resolution that speaks to that. And I don't think that we're there yet. Our own board is telling us. We have a board member that's dedicated as much as anyone else on this board is saying it doesn't do enough to the matters we're concerned about. We need to do more work on this. Therefore, let's pause. Let's reflect on that. We have wisdom in the room, certainly wisdom so far executed in what's been written. And I'm sure that if we take our time and dedicate ourselves to this, we will get this right. And then we will get this town behind us because it's right, and they will understand what we're trying to do.
Should we have a motion? Or you just want to table it?
This doesn't require a motion.
No, yeah.
I will now move on to the next item of the agenda, which is the Black History Month Subcommittee update. I know David McKenna is not here tonight. He's probably at the training.
He is, yes.
At the high school.
And really, the item should be more of a recap of the event that went on, the
Yes.
program that happened last night. The wording's not right on the agenda, but.
Yes, I don't know if anybody tuned in last night to listen to Sheila Cook Kaiser speak about DEAL. It was really moving. Very, very good program. Just want to thank the Danvers Historical Society for putting that program together. just a quick summary. Part of what Sheila said was that in the 1890s, N.L. Page wrote an article about a former enslaved person, and her name was Deal, whom she knew personally. And Mrs. Page's grandfather, Jeremiah Page, purchased Deal in 1766. And Page's article inspired DHS volunteer Sheila Cook, who was the presenter, to find out more about Deal and who she was, what happened to her, and why did Anne write about her. And using clues in Page's article, Sheila researched primary and secondary sources at Ancestry.com, other websites, libraries, and even St. Peter's Episcopal Church in Salem to find more about Deal. And she went through like her story, and she after she was free, she moved to Salem and got married and had kids. And it was a very moving program, and to just know that this is something that happened in our town, you know, it's a true testament as to how important it is to know our history and really move forward knowing what had transpired in the past. I don't know if anyone listened to the program or has any comments about it, but I really enjoy it.
And I believe it's available on DCAT, YouTube, if anybody missed it. I'd have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure it's there. So if you missed it, it was recorded.
Any other updates? Perfect. I will now move on to Women History Month Speaker Series update. Eileen, and I think you're on that subcommittee too.
Jorge's on the subcommittee too, yeah.
Any updates on that?
Yeah, I'll share. So we are a little behind schedule, but not alarmingly so. So we're going to be hosting on March 3rd, March 17th, and March 31st. We're going to be airing 3 separate programs on DCAT. On March 3rd, we're going to be hosting Lila Herod, who's the former director of Danvers Cares and an Appalachian Trail through hiker. She's going to be coming to speak with us about her hikes, and she gives a lot of talks. She's been doing a lot of different talks. So we actually have to film her program prior to March 3rd, and it will not air live, but the other 2 will. And on the 17th, we have Claudia Foxtree coming. She's a Indigenous peoples advocate and an artist. So she'll be coming. Charlie put us in touch with her. And then on March 31st, Ann Chung will be coming, and she runs a program or a nonprofit called A2 Empowerment, which provides scholarships and education to girls in Cameroon. So I know.
Cameroon.
Yeah. So they're both they're all wonderful women, and they've agreed to donate their time to have this sort of we're picturing it as like a fireside chat program where they'll have about 35-40 minutes to present, and then we've invited some high schoolers from the Women of the World Club and from PRISM and Melina. I'm sorry, what's the other group you said? Diversity Club. Thank you. To help moderate the Q&A. So there will be an email address that I've set up. It's danverswomen with an E at gmail.com that during the program viewers can email their questions because we've decided to do it not as a Zoom meeting. It got a little too complicated when we got into that. And they can email their questions live. I'll kind of sift through the questions, pass them off to the moderators from the high school, and they'll be able to ask those questions in real time. So we're going to be, like I said, we'll be filming Lila's hopefully sometime next week, and then Claudia and Ann's programs will air live. So 7 o'clock on every other Thursday in March. So we'll have more information coming on that, and we'll start putting some social media out there hopefully this week once we firm up who our moderators are, because my girl Melina is going to take care of me on that one. And, yeah, so we're like full speed ahead, and it's going to be, I'm really excited about this. I think
this is really exciting. Do we have location yet?
It's going to be at the DCAT studios, but people will have to watch from home.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, so I should have clarified that. So, yeah, it'll be airing live, just like, it would in a meeting. But viewers will watch from home. So the only people in the studio will be the speaker, our moderators from the high school, the DCAT staff. I'll be there to kind of make sure everything's running. But we weren't going to do like a studio audience because of COVID concerns. So people will be able to email. The email address will kind of go up on the screen throughout the program of where they can email if they have questions. And that's how they'll be able to ask questions.
Maybe we can talk to Deacon about a small studio audience, though. I don't know how, I know the studio is pretty small there, but it'd be interesting if people are masked up and.
Ethan's actually going to be running it. Ethan, are you back there?
He probably is, so.
He might be busy, I don't know.
We'll follow up with Ethan and see if we can have a small studio audience.
Yeah, oh, here he is.
Students and.
What's up? I heard sorry.
No, it's okay. So we were I just figured if you don't mind weighing in really quick. So Dee had brought up the idea of potentially having like a small studio audience during the women's program. What do you think? Do you think we could accommodate that, or?
That's ultimately up to Greg.
Okay.
I know we had something where someone wanted to bring in some people for a show this week, and I know Greg set a limit for how many people. I can't remember exactly what it was. It didn't really end up mattering because we didn't get the amount of people that showed up for the program was not anywhere near the limit, but that's a decision that Greg will make.
I'll follow up with him on that.
Okay, that'd be great, yeah. Thank you so much. Sorry to pull you away.
No worries.
This is great.
Yeah, so I'm really, really excited about this. And like I said, as soon as, I think we're going to probably start circulating the social media stuff anyways. I wanted to be able to put the moderators' names on there. So it says like, Claudia Foxtree with, Melina, however you say your last name. But I don't know if we'll be able to get it in time because we got to start publicizing it. But yeah, we're pretty much, we're good to go aside from figuring out who the moderators are going to be.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Any questions? No, I think this is all good stuff. Okay, I'll now move on. Select Board Liaison update. David is not here yet. School committee updates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few items tonight. First of all, if anyone watched our meeting on Monday night, you know that essentially the mask mandate in our schools expires on the 28th statewide. And we essentially didn't need to vote because we did not put a mandate in place. So the mandate will expire in Danvers public schools as it will anywhere. And there was no desire among the board to take a vote to change that at all. So we'll be following the recommendations of the governor and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And so, that's big news for the town. I repeat it here just so people are aware of it.
Eric, what is the vaccination rate at the high school?
The vaccination rate at the high school, that's a fair question. And here's the issue, Bob, that when the governor said if you reach 80%, you don't have to mask anymore.
Right.
That 80% rate had to be based on local measurements. Now, in our case, what we asked people to do from the schools was to voluntarily tell us if, whether it was the staff or students, voluntarily tell us if you have been vaccinated. That number of people who have voluntarily come forward and said that they're vaccinated is somewhere in the 30-something% range. But that doesn't probably reflect the reality. And actually, Dee would have, I think, a better sense overall of if you took, different ages, including up to 18, I believe the number is much higher than that, based on not self-reporting, but from what the state chases down. The issue is that the state would be including people from St. John's Prep, people from anywhere, people who aren't in school at all but fall into the 18-year-old age group. So I can't give you a flat number, but I suspect it's probably consistent with the rest of vaccinations, probably 70 to 80%. Dee, does that make sense?
I was just checking my email really quick to see if I got the update from today.
Excuse me.
Because I usually get them Thursday evening, and I don't have it yet. I couldn't speak specifically of the school per se, but I can say as of last week, the town of Danvers was about 77% vaccinated, and that is for everybody in town. And among the 77% vaccinated, about 47% had already gotten their booster, which is almost half. But if you look at the eligible people, which means if we take out the people that are under 5 years old, which is about 2,000 people, we are at about 81% vaccinated. If we take the percentage of eligible people. But if we take the whole town, it's about 77. School-wide age, I don't have that with me. I was just checking my email here. I haven't gotten the numbers yet. But the problem that I think the school had with requesting the waiver from DESI was because there's a lot of people that are vaccinated that did not report it to the school. And therefore, they did not meet the 80% threshold.
Yeah, based on self-reporting, which is what
That's
we
correct.
had to do. It
That's
never
correct.
came close. So that's why we simply had to wait.
Yes.
I just had a question, Eric, if you don't mind me asking,
No,
just
of course.
out of curiosity. And I asked because my mom's a high school teacher, not in Danvers, but I know the masking has been a hot topic with teachers and making sure they feel safe. What kind of input did the school committee take from the teachers' unions and the students when deciding that they're going to kind of just let the mask mandate expire? Was that considered?
Yes, and first of all, in the very
Before
beginning,
you answer, I have nightmares about discussing mass issues, so it's okay. You can.
when in the very beginning, when we were talking at first about the governor's mandate, the teachers' union actually polled their staff, and they were about 50-50. I can tell you that we sent out a survey to all parents and all staff before this Monday's meeting. And the numbers for parents, speaking on behalf of their kids, was in the 70%, make masks optional. Staff was about 66 or 65% make masks optional. So there was a critical mass among both parents and staff. Now, we did not, I must admit, take a survey of all the students, but what we, in the parents and the staff, they were clearly leaning very heavily toward making masks optional.
Thank you, just curious.
Sure, no, that's fine. So that's masking. We're hoping that this will, how do I put this? Take maybe take that boiling water and bring it temperature down a little bit, because this was a source of a lot of heightened feelings, and it became political. And so now that maybe we're past this point, we're hoping that it'll calm the temperatures in a lot of different ways. So that remains to be seen. We are working.
Sorry if I do. And
Sure.
I said I wasn't going to talk about masks, but just to clarify, as of now, on the 28th, after the 28th,
Yes.
the kids are still required to wear the mask on the bus.
Yes, that's a federal.
So
that's a federal law.
mandate. So
Yep.
that does not change because the school committee
No.
nor the local board of health have authority over that decision. So
Right.
public transportation, buses, airplanes, people will still be required to wear masks in those
Yeah.
spaces, just to clarify.
And the truth
Could you
is,
repeat
any
that again?
business that wants to
It's
do
the
it.
school buses, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So after
kids will still-
February 28th, if you're getting on a school bus, you still have to wear the
That
mask.
is correct.
Yeah.
And what were the other types of events?
Airplanes,
Oh, okay.
public
This is
transportation.
the,
In the nurse's office, in our health offices, Masks will still have to be worn when students go down to the nurse. And they're encouraging both vaccinated and unvaccinated people to wear masks during any period where they would, of quarantine, if they know they've been exposed. But that's, I believe, a recommendation and not a mandate.
I just want to say for the record that the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, advises that the mask mandate not end. I mean,
I'm sorry, Bob, can you repeat that? I really couldn't hear you well, I'm sorry.
the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, has stated that they do not want the mask mandate ended. They say that the pandemic isn't over. So, I just want
No, I mean, it's agreed, but, you know, there's, and I heard a doctor who was terrific this week talking about this, and he said, look, as public health professionals, we tend to be conservative about public health, but elected officials, he was talking about governors as an example, but I think it applies to Dee, it applies to me, it applies to anybody who's in a leadership position. We also have to consider the social impact of what we do, the economic impact of what we do, and weigh that against the public health needs. And I think we have come to a point where the numbers are so favorable that now the mental impact on students from having to wear masks now may be more harmful than the danger that a young student would actually catch COVID and get seriously ill. The numbers are very favorable, and we have to recognize that.
especially on
and
the
see where it
elementary
takes us.
level where body language is so important to the learning.
And we have to really be confident that the decision of, and I spoke to you
Yes.
about that, of lifting it at this time. I said I wasn't going to talk about masks. Yeah, I can't help it. The decision of lifting it at this time was really appropriate. I mean, we are talking about from the Omicron, we are 77% vaccinated in town, 81% of eligible people that are eligible to be vaccinated. That's pretty good. We went from a positivity rate of 12% 2 weeks ago to 0.9%. Okay. I just had a meeting this morning with the MGB, Mass General, Brigham and Women and Salem Hospital, and during the meeting, one of their chief physicians said that at Salem Hospital today, we had 11 COVID patients with only 1 in the ICU, compared to 107 on January 28th. So
Sharp decline.
definitely.
Yeah.
And their staff, the positivity rate among the staff is good. I mean, 0 is good, but it's manageable. And they have actually started to do elective surgeries and things like that, elective procedures. So I think we are at a good place. We still have to be cautious, but I will support lifting it at this point without any reservation. So,
yeah, we think it makes sense. And, you know, this whole pandemic has been an exercise in sociology for a lot of us, looking at the different ways people have reacted to different things. But let's see, let me move on to, we, as a school committee, we've received communications from the NAACP about setting up individual meetings to talk about the events of the past year, and I think for them to get a better understanding of our, you know, what our policies are, what we try and do, how we react to things. And at this point, we are starting out by we've agreed to have a group meeting with a small group of us, the superintendents, myself, maybe the high school principal, and some members of the NAACP, and talk about the framework for what this would be, because we are hoping to gain some important information from this, and I think we're hoping to share some important information, but we want to be a positive experience, and we think the best way is to start out with a joint meeting to really set down the parameters and expectations about everybody. So I'm very optimistic that that'll work into a good process. We also had a local citizen come forward and talk to the superintendents and myself about the possibility of doing a workshop, essentially. And the framework was that, you know, the community is still in pain. And can we get the stakeholders from all groups, this one, Board of Selectmen, School Committee, and just do a workshop on what people's concerns and expectations are in addressing these issues to improve things, to relieve some of that pain that he sees is still out there. And, you know, when it'll come together, I'm not entirely sure, because, you know, it requires so many different stakeholders in town to say, yeah, we think this is a good idea. But it does sound like a promising idea that we're going to consider very seriously, so that's out there.
Wonderful idea.
So, yeah, that's kind of what we thought. So, in the last piece, I think I mentioned last week, or our last meeting rather, that we had done the elementary school presentation on the anti-racist learning in the elementary schools. And it's interesting that one of the things that came up there was that experts really believe that you cannot start this too early, that kids as young as 2 or 3 will start to form conceptions of racism or say racial differences based on what they see and hear. And so it's never too early to begin discussions at an age-appropriate level. But we did have one parent express a concern at the school committee meeting that maybe we should wait until the kids are in high school before we address this serious topic. And, you know, I have to say that I respectfully disagree. I think we've got to address it, but again, in an age-appropriate manner. But, you know, the issue is, I think looking forward, we're going to have to do as a school committee and maybe as this committee and a town, I think a good job of communicating the importance of exposing all our young people to, as I say, in an age-appropriate manner, in a manner that they can understand, you know, to the concepts of our history and what it really means. So that is my report for tonight.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
Yeah, Eric, will they be presenting workshops at the middle school and high school in conjunction with what they did at they're doing now they already completed the workshops at the elementary school?
Well, I mean, we are in the middle of, like, yeah, that's part of our curriculum, and it's part of what's going on in the elementary school. You know,
Right.
we are presenting, you know, books and discussions,
Right.
but I will say at the elementary school level, it's much more aimed at how to make students feel included. You know, if you're in a class and a student comes from somewhere else, learning about their background, sharing your background, it's much more in the nature of being kind to each other and learning about differences and respecting differences, as opposed to getting into a deep discussion about, you know, the history of slavery and racism in America. Because, again, you're trying to aim it at the population that you're teaching. So we're right now addressing the issues in one way or another at all levels. We're committed to that, and that's part of our social and emotional learning commitment, and it is happening.
Thank you.
Any other question? Okay, that's a good segue while I'll have David settle down before I pass him the torch. On new business, I had a couple of items. Kristen, who was unable to be here today, and myself did meet with David Thompson from the high school, who, on behalf of Danvers Cares, and they were looking to partner with this committee into an event that will be taking place in June. They're calling it a healing and unity experience event. The tentative date is June 5, and the location, we had a discussion about Endicott Park and the high school, and we kind of thought that the high school would be more appropriate for 2 reasons. Number one, we want to get a lot of our youth involved, and number two, if it rains, if we have bad weather, we do have enough space within the high school complex to be able to still have the event.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if we are at Endicott Park and we get rain, then we're out of luck. So that's why we thought the high school would be appropriate. And the event is to look at a accumulating event for the 2021-2022 school year and kind of showcase what the community and the greater Danvers has been working on. You know, what have we been working on? The idea is to have a variety of tables, exhibitors that are directly related to the work that is happening in town. You know, things like the Holocaust Symposium, the Equity Training at DHS, the Anti-Discrimination Club, PRISM, local businesses, 501Cs in the North Shore that are involved in this work. So the concept is that the resident will register in advance, and when they arrive, they will be given a punch card and sent to a specific station. At the station, they will learn about the organization that's there, what they do, how they can get involved, and they'll have some activities for people. And once they finish at that station, they'll get their card punch and then go to another one, and so forth. Danvers Cares have applied for a $5,000 grant from the Boston Bridge to cover the expenses for this event. And primarily, it'll be for like food trucks. Hopefully, you know, COVID is behind us and we can actually have some good food. Everywhere you have food, count me in, so sorry. So, I mean, additional sponsor will be welcome, but we at least will probably be able, Danvers Cares will be able to secure those $5,000 to go toward the cost of this event. They are looking for 2 or 3 volunteers from this committee to help them in the process of organizing this and kind of iron things out. So if you are able to help, please let me know. I'll put you in contact with Mr. Thompson so that you can help with the planning of this event. Yeah. So that. Any questions about that? I think this will be a great thing, for us to be part of. Any questions about that? So, any volunteers? I got Bob. Okay, well, if you think you can help, just let me know. I'll put you in contact with David so that he can reach out to let you know when you meet and start the planning of this. Tentative date again is Sunday, June 5, and we're thinking like from 9 to 2. We don't want to do it too late, but that's TBA. So. Kristen and I also met on the 11th. We've been a little busy trying to. We met on the 11th with Lauren Swain Ball-Holt from the Health Mayor Center for Cultural Engagement. And she had reached out and we discussed the possibility to partner with the library and the schools to have just some living room conversations, kind of like a living room conversations series on issues of race. And personally, I think that those conversations can be uncomfortable. I do think that because it's uncomfortable, we tend to shy away from them, but we should actually be having more of it. I think having more of it is helpful, is healthy, and we talk about what this would look like, and I said I'll bring it back to this committee. What they do, they are very flexible in their approach and always work with the community and the individually to kind of tailor the nature of the conversation to our needs and our liking. It could be 10 people in a room just having an unfiltered conversation with a moderator, or it could be a panel discussion, with Q&A. I think this is something we should partner with the library and the school on. I don't know if anybody has any idea or any thought or yes, no, maybe.
We could put it on the agenda for next month to talk a little more in depth too.
Sure, sure.
I'll put that on there.
Yeah, I just think this would be a great thing, you know, to have a series of conversations like that.
Yeah, one of the complaints is, you know, you're not listening to me. And this would give us the opportunity to interact, to really cross, you know, over. So I think that it's really a worthwhile, valuable.
Definitely. And I like the way they put it as to being like a living room conversations. It's nothing fancy. We're all at a different stage of this journey. And I used to use the word kind of creating a safe space for people to get vulnerable, right? And I think someone corrected me yesterday and said, no, we don't call it safe space anymore. We call it brave space. You know, where because it takes a lot of courage and bravery to have these conversations. But Lauren told us during our meeting that the people, the moderators, do a very good job in making everyone feel like wherever they are in this journey, that's okay. You know, we're all at different stages, and that's okay. That's part of the growth that each of us have to
Learn about each
exactly.
other. You know.
Exactly. And talk to each other, right?
Yeah.
Kind of listen to each other instead of just about each other.
Right.
So we can take a deep dive into this series at our next meeting. And if I get more information, maybe I'll provide that even prior to the meeting so that people can take a look at it. And the last item that I had here was, and I alluded to it earlier, the DEI position is still open. And I spoke to the town manager yesterday. He's committed and to really getting it filled as soon as possible and to get the right person. So interviews have begun. There've been some, you know, we're still coordinating with some more candidates. But I'm sure before the end of the month, hopefully, the town will be at a place where they can offer someone the position. And we're all waiting for that. We all need it, and you know, it's moving forward. Any questions on that? Perfect. That's it on the new business for me, and I will now. Yes.
I got a couple new business items for
Oh,
everyone,
okay.
sorry. Just a couple little ones. So our next meeting is scheduled for March 17th. That's the third Thursday of the month. But because that is one of our speakers for Women's History Month, I wondered if the group would like to push it either to the 24th, so pushing it out a week, or meeting on the 16th, which would be a Wednesday, the day before.
I prefer,
yeah.
I prefer Thursdays.
You like a Thursday, okay.
Yeah. I think pushing out a week will be better if
Okay.
we do it on the 24th. So that will also give us a good opportunity to kind of debrief on the presentation and things
Perfect.
like that. So
All right, I will add that. And then, sorry, my only other item is we are going to start in March planning for Pride. We've got 2 events planned. We're looking at let me see, hang on. We had decided on June 2nd for the flag raising in front of Town Hall. That's the Thursday we typically do it, I think at 5 on a Thursday. And then we had planned to do a Pride party on the Saturday the 4th on the lawn of the library. I'm wondering, knowing that this other event that was happening June 5th, if maybe we do it a week later or, but I'll be reaching out to the subcommittee for Pride. I've got Bob, Donna, Deb, Amanda, and Kristen on our subcommittee, as well as Lieutenant Sullivan and Pastor Douglas, and Gabrielle Montevecchi, who is a Danvers resident and a principal in one of the Beverly schools. So she has offered to help as well. So we've got a little citizen participation going
That's
on
good.
there.
And if you change that date from the 5th or from the 4th, please let me know, because
Oh, yeah.
part of the reason why we had a tentative date of Sunday, the 5th, was because of that event.
Oh,
So
okay.
if that event is not gonna happen on that day, we might move these Danvers Cares events to Saturday.
Let's keep it the same then. Oh, no, I'm sorry. You're saying you would use the Saturday instead.
That is correct.
Why don't we say then that you guys use the Saturday and we can look at either the 11th or the 18th for Pride. And then we kind of extend it a little more than beyond the first weekend of June.
I can let David know. I don't know how far he is with the
Okay.
planning, but I'll let him know
Just
that
keep me in the loop, yeah, and we'll,
Saturday is open.
okay.
You're talking about Saturday, June 4th,
Yes.
for the Pride event?
No, for the Danvers
Oh, the
Cares.
Danvers Cares.
Yes.
So
what-
giving them that Saturday, and then we would look at either June 11th, which is a Saturday, or June 18th for the Pride Party, which I kind of like actually, because then it feels like we're not cramming it into one weekend. We're kind of actually acknowledging the entire month. So maybe our group will talk about that if you guys want to confirm which date you'd prefer.
But you also know we have Juneteenth.
Shoot, yeah, we have two. Okay, so maybe
up, so-
it's a busy month. So maybe Pride on the 11th, and then that gives us Juneteenth on the 19th, which gives us a full week in between. That's going to be a busy month.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll make it work.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll make it work. We'll figure it out.
Perfect. Anything else on the new business? No? Okay, the Honorable David Mayors, any select board update?
Hi, everyone. Sorry I was late. This was the 6th session of our Holocaust seminar, which was Thursday nights for the last, well, for 6 weeks. And so that's why I was late. And I think Rob Sullivan was also a participant, so that explains why Rob is not here. And it was a magnificent program. One of the things that I experienced was listening to actual stories rather than a lecture, but to hear the stories of people. We heard some Holocaust survivors, a woman in Peabody who was one of the women scheduled to be executed, and she told the story of how she escaped the execution in Auschwitz. Powerful, and some other people giving witness. And it was a great program. It was put together by the Lapin Foundation in Salem and Danvers High School, especially Adam, I always mispronounce his last name. Federico, the principal at the high school. And it was very, very well attended. It was a great presence of Danvers High School students that was very inspiring. And one of the things that came to my mind was that kind of a presentation was wonderful. It was all about the Holocaust and anti-Semitism. Well, there should be something on racism with people telling their stories of what racism means. I mean, to put together, in fact, I'll talk to the person at the Lapin Foundation just to get her ideas. She may have some ideas of how we could put something together on racism and then homophobia and heterosexism. Because until the stories of people are told, all the lesson books, all the gossip means nothing compared to witness of people who have experienced the pain of these evils. I've got nothing to report from the Board of Selectmen because my hearing's not good, Dee, but I think that you gave an update on our efforts to identify an inclusion and equity employee for the town. Did you just do that?
I did.
Yeah. And I had nothing more than what the town manager reported to us on Tuesday night. And otherwise, the board has, like everybody else, has a million things going, but they're always very appreciative of the effort that this committee has come in the last couple of years totally alive and doing such great and necessary work. So thank you from the board to all of you for that. And I don't think I have anything else official to report from the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you very much. Anything else? There are none, so I will need a motion to adjourn.
Eileen,
Yes.
are you paid for this?
I need a second.
Second.
Okay, got a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. We adjourn. Thank you, Danvers. Good night.